Thank you guys all for coming out for children with special needs. This right here is very important to me. I'd like to welcome all you guys to come out to this workshop for special needs planning. As this is really dear to me, for me as a heart. One thing for me, if you guys don't know, I have a child who's autistic. He was diagnosed at 18 months old. My middle son, Zion. And for me, it was so important to really understand his situation and everything he was going through, as I was lost. I was confused like many of you guys when it came to this situation. As we all know too well, you're going through the day, you're operating, and you don't know. We never plan for this, right? We never think that we're going to be born with a child or a child is going to become special or become a special needs child. So when we do this type of planning, right, we just become, we just get bombarded, right? And so today, what we really want to just do, we'll just have an educational thing, as we know, oftentimes we're bombarded, right? Going through different professional, learn all these new professional, medical professionals, medical terminology we may have never heard of, depending on our child's age, special education system you might not be existing or a future that you simply did not plan for. That goes beyond personal care decisions involving law, specialized planning that you may not even knew to ask about. All this wrapped up in often just trying to get through the day and perhaps the week. And by the way, I didn't even mention that one or both of you guys might still be working. You might have other children that you might be caring for. As a special needs parent myself, I certainly understand what we're going through. So that's the bad news. But the good news though is that we're here this evening to help make sure for you can make sense of the legal, financial issues, best practices, and even government best programs as well. We'll also be referring to other professionals who can help you with the next step in the process. For this purpose of the discussion tonight, I'll be referring with children with special needs. So even if they're adult that might be disabled, we're referring to them as just children with special needs. Okay. So today's session about sharing my extensive knowledge on the topic of special needs planning. I do this by sharing facts relative to all aspects of planning for the quality of life of someone with special needs, which will include information about legal issues, financial issues, and government benefits. What we'll not be doing tonight is providing counsel or making recommendations relative to any of your personal decisions. If I were to do that, I would require much more in-depth knowledge about your individual situation, which, if it's related to the financial issue, we'll be able to provide later on at a later date. It's relative to many other facets of this planning. I'll be able to refer you to those specific experts at the end of this presentation as well. So what I really want to say is lifetime care or quality care is critical. I will ever be addressing quality of care rather than lifetime care. Lifetime care is very important, such as having the basic food, shelter, and clothing, etc. But parents never want to think of the children, special needs or not, of just getting by on survival mode, right? Parents want to make sure their children are happy and fulfilled and having whatever they need to bring equality to their lives. So as long as we are alive, we work 3 jobs to make sure our kids. I remember me, I grew up as a single parent household. My father passed away when I was 11 years old. I remember my mother waking up at 4 o'clock to leave the house by 5 to get to work, to bust her butt to make things happen. And I think all of us will live in that same situation where we'll do anything for our children, right? To make sure that they're taken care of, they have a great quality of life. So why should care be any different if we're gone? Their needs are still the same, perhaps even more, now that we are gone. In my work with other parents with loved ones with special needs, they often tell me what keeps them up at night are things such as who will become the caregiver when they're gone? How will care be provided the way it is today? And where will the funds come from to ensure all my wants and wishes for my child can really happen? It's a very difficult situation to imagine. Any child who has lost their parents, but especially if the child has special needs. In my work with other parents with loved ones with special needs, they often tell me what keeps them up at night are thoughts such as who will become the caregiver when they're gone, how will the care be provided for today, and what will those wishes, and can we really make those wishes happen? So it's very difficult to imagine any child who has lost their parents, especially a child with special needs. And let me say this, I think about this constantly at night all the time, and this is what really got me really serious about this subject of special needs planning. And I do this talk, I do multiple talks throughout the Bay Area here in California, and we know we have some people across the country, because what worried me was I lost my father at 11 years old, and I guess it's just haunted me at that point. If I pass away, How will my son's life live? How will my wife sustain herself, right? And if you're a parent, it's so hard to raise a special needs child, do everything you can for them when you got so much just going on for them. So that's what's really, really important for us. So special needs plans involve two critical points. So let's really dive into this, right? One point is from a legal standpoint, and the other is from a financial point. As we move through this session, though, you will see how both are equally important. What you'll learn today is that general estate planning is quite different than planning for a child with special, often requiring a different team of professionals than the team you may already work with. If you already have plans in place to address your child's special needs, be sure to review them annually to ensure that those plans will still hold up according to your wishes, because there could have been changes in the law, financial products, etc. that could affect your plans depending on how long ago your plans were in place. So often, I meet with parents who tell me that they already handle their estate planning, but this is typically for tax purposes. They will also tell me that they have all the life insurance and investments they need to pass on to their children. What we learned today is that general estate planning is quite different than planning for a child who has special needs, often requiring a different team of professionals than the team you may already be working with. If you already have plans in place to address your child's special needs, be reassured them review them annually to ensure that those plans will still hold up according to the wishes, because there could have been changes in the law, financial products, etc. that can affect your plans depending how long you put them together. If you left assets over $2,000 to your child or other dependents with special needs, you most likely caused them to lose eligibility for government benefit. Let me say that again, just in case the $2,000 limit. This is a huge thing to understand. If you have assets over $2,000 to your child or dependent with special needs, you most likely cause them to lose eligibility for most government benefits. So one of the most important benefits of supplemental security income, also referred to as SSI, is that once a person with a disability qualifies for SSI, he or she also qualifies for Medicaid. And in most states, like here in California, we have Medi-Cal. And even if you believe your child would not need SSA, they might very well need Medicaid, which is the government health insurance. Now, by a show of hands, you could just put this in the chat real quick. How many of you knew this legislation existed? Just put that in the chat. Just wave your hand in the chat right now. By a show of hands, how many of you knew that this legislation exists? Of those who knew about this legislation, how many of you have not taken care of the planning because you were unsure what to do? Let me say this again. Of those who knew about this legislation, whoops, got my tongue tied. How many of you have not taken care of the plan because you was unsure of what to do? Either way, not to worry, because by the end of this session, you'll all be armed with the information needed to plan for your child appropriately and effectively. For all this mentions, we're going to take a step back and put it all in context. Whether you have a child with special needs or not, one of the first things you need to address is your will or living trust. A will, for you guys to have an understanding of it, is an estate plan, right? A will is a estate planning tool in which you leave a portion of your estate to your child or other persons or the personal representative or executor is the individual who would carry out the particulars of the will. By a show of hands, how many people in the audience do not have a will? Don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. Just put in the chat, say yes or no on that situation. For those who just raised their hands, when you die, right, and you do not have a will that provides instructions for the distribution of your asset and names of who you want to care for your children, your state laws would dictate how to let me say this again. This is so poor. I'm starting over my words. When you die and you do not have a will that provides instructions for the distribution of your assets and the names of who you want to care for your children, your state law will dictate how and to whom your assets are distributed, and also who will be appointed as guardian, personal representative, or executor. Their decision might not be what you want. Think about it. When you go to court, they don't know you. The judge doesn't know you, your background, your family, sibling. They just gave this matter right now, and oftentimes they're bombarded right now with everything going on. They're just going to make a decision. They don't know if those decisions are the same decisions as you want, because they don't know the values you might have, the care that you want for your child, and this is for special needs or not. They might not even know how you want your assets to go about. So that's why typically when parents say they have not written a will or named a guardian for the children, they say it because they can't decide how to distribute their assets or who to appoint. Understand, the worst decision you could make would most likely still be a better choice than one made by some random judge who knows nothing about you, your child, and your situation. So at a minimum, you should have a will, and a current one at that. A living trust basically does what a will does, right? But it does what some really good thing. What I always say is this: a will is something you put on a napkin that you hope to be done. But a trust is something that's concrete, put together, hold. We gotta stand by that. And what it does so well with a living trust is, one, it's not made public. So people don't know what assets you have, where your wishes are out of public. You won't be in the newspaper. There are people who hunt down and look for estates all the time to see how they can make it come up in this world. Number two thing, it's funny during your lifetime, it prevents your state from going through probate. And that's a huge thing. Here in California, I'm in Oakland, California to be exact, right? The state taxes, the taxes for probate is huge, how much the courts charge. Because you're not just paying for the courts, you're also paying for the attorneys as well, right? So those are highly important things, right? And third, and instead of a personal representative or executor to carry out the specifics of the will, a living trust has a trustee, right? And if you don't know what a trustee is just following all the rules of the road that you set out. So if you want certain things to go a certain way, they're supposed to follow those rules to the road. That's what they do for you in a simple nutshell. So let's talk about legal consideration. However, trustee is not the only consideration. You also need to consider who will serve as a guardian. While your child is under 18, as his or her parent, you basically are their guardian, right? We're a kid's guardian. What that basically means is that you make all the decisions for your child until they become a legal adult. Now, question for everybody here as audience. Do you know what age someone is considered a legal adult? Once again, I ask you this, please put it in the chat. Do you know what age someone is considered a legal adult? Let's see. Somebody put it in the chat. 18, correct, Felicia. You are right for that. It is 18. The court generally considers someone a legal adult when he or she turns 18, whether that person actually functions as one. So put it in real terms. If your child is 20, lives at home with you, has a functional age of 5, and you provide all his or her care, that child is still considered a legal adult. You as the parent must apply for guardianship through a court in order to have control and responsibility over your disability, over your child with a disability, right? But that is not that's not here, but what if you're not here or able to care for a child? Then who you appoint as a guardian to watch over your child becomes critically important. You name a guardian in your will and make your wishes known in a formal written document. After consultation with family members, oftentimes, with family members, be sure to choose the person you believe will be best able to care for your child. After you die, when you can no longer care for a child, the person you have designated will go to the court and file an acceptance to an appointment to be your child guardian. Assuming there are no objections, your wishes will be honored. I think this is a huge thing, right? I remember I went to the Autism Society conference back in last month in October. I did a couple talks there. And one of the talks where we had a lot of people whose children were 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and they didn't make this just thing. And they were talking about it. And even people were like, wow, who I want to make this guardian? So I think this is a very important thing we have to really consider, and a conversation we have to have with our family members, if not with our friends, and asking these questions: who will be our guardian for our children? I think this is a huge barrier, right? And I think even me, I assume, right, my son's 6, I have my oldest child about to be 15 on Sunday. I'm just thinking about, I'm assuming that's what he wants. And I should have, instead of assuming that, when he turns 18, that's how he wants. But that should not be an assumption I make. Because some people want to live independent lives, don't want to be a caregiver for their siblings. So it might not always be a brother or sister like we think it is. So I think this is a very important situation and conversation we need to have. Whoops, I thought we went over. So for many people though, they thought creating a will or trust can be very old, and this can be especially true for families with a loved one with special needs. So sometimes people decide to distribute their assets in other ways. I've referred to these choices as common planning mistakes. What are some of these common mistakes? Some families may think it is the best interest in the child with special needs not to leave him or her any assets, essentially disinherit to the child. Instead, assets are left to siblings or other family members, or restricted to use those funds to care for a child with special needs. That is what we refer to as morally obligated. Morally obligated gifts are not legally enforceable. This is important. I want you guys to understand. Morally obligated gifts are not legally enforceable. How many times do we hear about, take special needs out of the situation, how many times do we hear about how a loved one got some assets and share it with another sibling and then get their fair share and things happen, right? We hear about these stories all the time. So we have to understand that, right? So that's why there's no guarantees that these funds will be used for a person's care and support. Assets could be attached by lawsuits, divorce, legal judgment, or just spent inappropriately. So let's say this: you give your child the money, right? You disinherit your child. You give it to the sibling. The sibling goes through a divorce. That money could get split now with your formerly ex-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, and then your special needs child is not getting any care. But what happens if your other child getting a car accident and now he's getting sued? Those assets that supposed to go to your special needs child could no longer be used. So we have to be very well understanding what the options and mistakes that we have for that. So just because we have well-intentioned relatives, for example, great aunt Tessie, who may leave assets in her will to your child, as we discussed earlier, this could cause your child to lose most of her eligibility for government benefit, like we mentioned earlier. So the question are there better options? To protect government benefit eligibility and to provide a way for you to create a quality of life for your child, a special needs trust not only protects supplemental security income, which provides for food, clothing, and shelter, and Medicaid, and I know we have people in Texas that's like say Medicaid, but us California people, we want to say Medi-Cal because that's what we have. We can also provide for anything other than food, clothing, and shelter because the trust is submit to supplement, not replace government benefits. Keep in mind that the use of a special needs trust is really the only legal way to protect your child's government benefit eligibility while still providing other resources through the trust. This is the difference between lifetime care and quality care, right? And to be more prudent, right? And to be more prudent than the trustee and the guardian can be two different people. The thought is that the trustee thinks with his or her head, while the guardian thinks with his or her heart. For example, you most likely don't have to worry that grandma's going to run away with her child's money, but is she a good money manager? That's the question. Of course, in order to be able to provide for all those wonderful things, the trust will need to be funded, which is what we will talk about next. As you can see, this chart, special needs trusts have no limit on how much money you can hold, and right, for how much money you can hold for anyone can be funded in the trust. From mom, grandma, to Aunt Mary, Aunt Sandra. Having said that, a child can have multiple special needs trusts, right? Typically, when a third-party special needs trust is created, which is what we are referring to today, yes, there are many types. There are no payback provisions, meaning the requirement to pay back funds to the government, which is deeper discussion with you and your attorney. Let me say that again, because I know I talked a little bit fast right there. Typically, when a third-party special needs trust is created, which is what we are referring to today, and yes, there are many different types, there are no payback provisions, meaning the requirement to pay back funds to the government, which, right, meaning the requirement to pay back funds to the government, which is a deeper discussion with you and your attorney, right? So that's an important question and conversation to have with your special needs attorney. The most common question I get asked is, what can a special needs trust pay for? Basically, the answer is anything except food and shelter. The asterisk following the item, purchase a home or pay rent, means there are a variety of qualifications that have to be met in order for a special needs trust to be able to provide for this, which is why it's not always yet. There may be another opportunity to provide financially for your child. Has anyone here ever heard of an ABLE account? Put that in the chat. Have any of you guys heard of an ABLE account? We got one answer right here. Somebody said no. So it stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. The ABLE account, right, was signed into law December 19, 2014, right, to allow qualified individuals with a disability to have tax-free savings account. It was modeled after the 529 College Savings Fund. However, it's much more limited than a special needs trust, and legislation is still required by each state to implement. Limits include: you can only contribute $17,000 for 2023, right? And in 2024, you can contribute $18,000 for it. You can only have one tax-free account. So you cannot have multiple ABLE accounts. Grandma and auntie and cousin can't. There's only one ABLE account per child, right? The great thing about this, once again, is that it's tax-free benefits. So just like a 529 plan. So if you don't know what a 529 plan is, a college savings account. You put the money in, the money grows deferred, so you're not paying taxes as it grows. If you use it for higher education, it's going to be tax-free. It's the same thing with the ABLE account. The money goes in, you're invested so the money can grow tax deferred. When you pull it out for the needs, it can be tax-free. Now, the maximum lifetime limit is currently $100,000 before SSI benefits are suspended. However, in California, we have a little bit better perk, right? So in California, you're able to save up to $475,000 and still participate in Medi-Cal and other benefit programs. So if you're relying on SSI for it, you got to make sure you're underneath $100,000 or less. But you're saying my child's not going to get SSI, we're not worried about it, you can raise it to $475,000, right? But once your balance drops below the lifetime limit, you may resume making contributions with your payback provision. So that's a really good heads up. And I think able accounts are wonderful things. I think more people are talking about it in the special needs community and space. I'm definitely seeing that more and more about just that conversation about it. So often I meet with parents who tell me that they already handle their estate plan, but it's typically for tax purpose. They will also tell me they have all the life insurance and investment they need to pass on to the children. What you will learn today is that general estate planning is quite different than estate planning for this, right? And I think that we have to understand it, right? Especially general estate planning is quite different than planning for a child with special needs, often requiring a different team of professionals than the team you already work with. So if you already have plans in place to address your child's special needs, be sure to review them annually to ensure those plans still hold up according to the wishes you want, right? So here's the financial considerations we should really be considering. How much money will be cared for your child? So one thing we do at our office, I think you should always do is write down a budget, make a spreadsheet of all the expenses that the child had, that you pay for or the government pays for as well. So even if you might not come out of pocket, give you an example. So for my 6-year-old Zion, he has speech therapy. Even though the government pays for it, right, through what we call the regional center here in California, I should write down the cost of that. He goes to ABA every day. I should be writing down the cost of that. I remember at a time before the government paid for his ABA, I was coming out of pocket and I had that cost. So if those costs carry on now or in the future, how much of that cost is going to be? And then my question after that is, where's that money going to come from to pay for it? Things are expensive, right? So we have to plan for those things. So when we plan for those things, there's really 5 primary places that we get the money from. 1 is the child. 2, to fund the special needs trust, is the parent. 3, the grandparents, siblings, then the government. But for this presentation, we're going to focus on the research that comes from the parents or perhaps even grandparents, right? And then let me ask you guys this. Is there any grandparents in the room that has a special needs child? Okay. In all these instances, keep in mind that the money may be given by a third party to a special needs. So anybody can give towards the special need, including life insurance, right? Saved by the individual with the disability, right? Or acquired, or it can be acquired. Include the purchase of specific products and funds for it. So there are 4 basic funding vehicles as listed, right? The first funding option is real property, such as your home. Many parents say when they die, right, their home should be sold, and the proceeds and part of the whole should go into the special needs trust. The problem is that their home is not a liquid asset. The real estate market at that time will determine not how much money the home sells for, but also how long it may take to sell. Where will the resources come from during the process? And what if the value of the real estate has declined? How will that affect your child and their quality of life? Second, are non-qualified investments such as mutual funds, stock, bonds, etc. They're not bad to contribute or lead to a trust, but again, the economic climate will certainly determine how much really ends up in the trust. Do you have enough time on your time horizon to save enough for that child? Something happens to you tomorrow, boom. Do you have enough money to take care of that quality of life for that child, right? Or you right? Because like my mama say in the old Southern church, right? No one knows the day or the time except the Lord. And we never know when that time is for ourselves. The third option may be, many folks say when they die, their qualified investments such as 401k, IRA, other plans will fund the trust. But how old are you when you die? If they are young, how much will you have contribute? If they're quite old, we have used much of their money to fund their own retirement years. Also keep in mind that retirement contributions were made pre-tax. So when the money comes out, it will be taxed. It's not to say, right, that these assets are not appropriate for the trust. It's just to keep in mind that, like the previous option, it might not truly meet the child need. Now let's talk about the life insurance aspect. The last option, right, is life insurance. It is most commonly used to fund special needs trusts. There are many reasons reflected on this chart. Instant estate creation. So you just with $1 just made $10, right? You turn pennies in dollars. You instantly made an estate for that child. Number 2, it's income tax free. 3, it's probate free, which means you don't have to go to the courts when it's inside your special needs trust. 4th thing I should say is your state tax, right? So you don't have to pay estate taxes on life insurance. So if you're a family that has a little bit over $12.5 million as a single person, over $25 million, you're gonna have estate tax. But if we correctly put the life insurance correctly, structured correctly, it will avoid your estate tax. Also, we can make sure it fits in your budget. and there's that guaranteed death benefit as well. This option, though, allows the parents to leave other assets to other non-disabled children. So why I recommend this, right, is your other assets, that retirement accounts, stocks, and everything else, might be used for your child who's not special needs. But then you have the life insurance that's for your special needs, right? That might, right? So that child who might not be special needs might not need that liquidity. So you have that Chevron stock, that AT&T stock, and they can allow that money to continue to grow and use dividends, while your special needs child might need additional income just to live and survive. Not survive, but quality of life, right? So because life insurance is often used to fund these trusts, and there are many different types of life insurance, I'll provide a high-level overview. Review the pros and cons of each as it relates to funding a special needs trust. Most people I speak with don't really know which type of life insurance they have, or if they do, whether it's the best type in this particular situation. So I'm just gonna go over just the basics of it, right? Term, the definition of term is temporary insurance, right? It covers you for a certain period of time, right? It is less expensive than permanent life insurance premiums when you're young and you're in good health, but it gets more expensive as you age. Most term policies offer 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years, and then increases drastically over a period of time at the end of that period. You may have a group term insurance through your employer at no or little relative cost. The only problem with group term is that it ends when your employment ends, including retirement. While the need for insurance to provide an asset for your loved ones continues, you might not have it if you retire with group health or if you leave your job. Whole life is a typical permanent life insurance designed to last for your entire life. Simple lifetime protection provides a lifetime of coverage for a guaranteed price with a guaranteed death benefit and cash value. Universal life is a life insurance that can last a lifetime. It has flexible premium payments and its minimal interest credit rating, guaranteed by the insurer, which is potential for additional cash value. You can adjust your premium payments and amount of coverage as your financial situation changes, depending on your health and subject to certain limitations. Because premiums are flexible, you may pay too little or borrow too much out of the cash value policy, which would cause the policy to lapse, which in essence means that your death benefit isn't necessarily guaranteed. Now, all these policies I just mentioned insure one life, but survivorship policy, right? Survivorship life insurance policy ensure the lives of two people in one policy. It generally costs less than insuring two people individually, which means this: you have a survivorship policy, you have a man and woman, right? Or a couple. When one person passes away, that death benefit doesn't pay out. It happens after the second person passes. And because of that, the premium is a lot less, right? Compared to we just get two individual policies. So to keep that cost down, oftentimes you might look at getting a survivorship policy, or simply not just cost, you might not need the death benefit yet because you still have enough money to take care of that. One spouse has enough money to take care of that themselves and for that special needs child. It's only after that other person passes away you might need it, okay? But of course, I want to give, with the information I'm giving you guys, is just very basic. Your life insurance needs and decision will need to be more explored, more deeper into it. So I asked a question to you, all you guys. To the best of your ability, consider your total monthly cost of all the services, products, and accessories, whether you be paid by you or another entity for your child. I realize that thinking about this can be very overwhelming, right? So I am going to provide some guidance on how to arrive at an appropriate number. You need to think about all the costs, including seemingly small expenses or little things like haircuts or monthly bus passes. These are things that most families just do without thinking about the cost. They're like, here, money. They go to the movies. We give them money. We do other things. We just do it without the cost, right? But when you're gone and your child is living on a fixed sum, every penny counts. For example, let's say your child requires $3,000 per month or $36,000 a year. Think about what that lump sum of money the trust will need and what interest rate will a lump sum need to generate $36,000 a year without depleting the principal. If you could depend on 10% rate of return, then the trust would need $360,000. But if we were to calculate a 5% rate of return, I'm glad we have those numbers back, guaranteed 5% rate of return a year in, year out, then they would need to increase to $720,000. In today's economy, 5% is what we could definitely generate right now, right? Another thing we should consider, which I think is highly important, right? And at this time, I know I'll probably be going on. We're exhausted. Some of you guys are exhausted, but I think this is highly important. I want you to understand that you're probably mentally exhausted right now. But believe it or not, there's one more item to take care of to make your planning complete. And that's your letter of intent. I just think this is such an important thing that we just don't talk about. We hear about trust, we hear about life insurance, but I think this is so important. A letter of intent is not a legal document, but it's still very important, comprehensive document that serves to provide your child guardian with all the information he or she needs to properly care for your child, and is going or doing so carry out your wish. This will be one of the most difficult things to do, as it's emotionally draining. You have to look far in your child's future, right, as if you were gone, and map out your wishes for not only a day in life, but also every day in your child's life. A will or trust cannot do this, right? So even though the trust, we have our wishes for our child, but it doesn't talk about the day in life. It doesn't talk about what your child likes to do, to park, what they like to play, what's their sensory, right? It doesn't include that. This is where the letter of intent comes in, because we have, for instance, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law loves my son to death, but they don't understand everything that goes to day-to-day activity. They see him on the weekends, but they don't know this is park that he goes to on a Wednesday or a Thursday, or this is his this is the place that he goes to for his sensory needs. I was thinking about Spirit Play Lab. There's a lot that goes into it. This is the name of the ABA person. There's a lot that goes into this. So I think this is a very important that we have to think about. Right. So this will be one of the most difficult, and so it's important to update the letter of intent on a regular basis. And when information changes, the update should also be signed and dated, right? I recommend once complete that you share it with your future guardian to ensure they truly understand what you're asking of them and make sure they are up to the task. If not, it's better to know when you can still make the change. Because once you give them this, they might say, whoa, this is a lot. This is too much. I can't do this. So I think it's important for them to have a better understanding of what's going on. So as of today's session, as I stated, with special needs involves two critical components. One from the legal standpoint and the other from the financial point. And the both are equally important. So as this session comes to a close, I want to recommend everyone that the experts you work with will be critical to the success of the plans you put in place. For instance, you may have a close friend who's a real estate attorney or even a estate planning attorney who says he or she can assist you with, but unless they know the ins and outs of special needs planning and staying up to date on all the ongoing changes, you can end up with a special needs trust that can never held up in court. This holds true for the same holds for you goes to funding the special needs trust. For instance, if you work with your brother-in-law who happens to sell life insurance to help you purchase life insurance and the beneficiary designation not handled correctly, you can literally undo the provision you have made in the trust document. I think that's so true. Like somebody say, hey, my brother does this and this. But what's the titling of it, right? I think the titling of this is huge. I know I just talked to somebody the other day, yesterday, not even the other day, and we're not even talking about special needs. We're just talking about just titling, period, because her husband passed away back in January last year, unfortunately. And at his job, he never changed his beneficiary. He had no beneficiary on his retirement plan. And I talked to this woman, she said, hey, I'm on the last of the money I have. I'm hoping I'm going through this probate, that I get the proceeds I'm supposed to get. It's been taking forever. I pay for attorney, and it's just a different, stressful thing, and nothing was in place. And I think it's even harder because she can eventually be self-sustain herself and take care of herself because she's at that age. But if you have a special needs child and you're unable to do that, it's just making a bigger challenge for them. So I think we have to consider those things when we're talking about why it's so important to work with somebody who knows what they're doing. When you're talking about estate planning attorney, it's more than just clicking on it, boom, here's a special needs trust by click on this latest software. There's a lot more complicated situation on how to actually put a special needs plan. And I tell you this, it is a niche to do special needs planning, right? There's only estate planning is a niche already within the law world. But when you make special needs planning and being a special needs attorney or a financial advisor with it, that circle gets so much more smaller. So I highly recommend you talk to somebody who really knows what you're doing, because you don't want this to be messed up, right? This is a thing. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You can't go half at it when it comes to this. Okay? So, like I always say, we're here to help you guys, right? So how do we help you? So what we do with you guys, right? The first meeting we're giving you is always complimentary, right? If you guys ever want to sit down with us, we'll provide you a 30,000-foot overview of what we have discussed briefly today, right? If you do not already have your own qualified special needs attorney, our firm can introduce you to a few qualified attorneys specialized in special needs for your choosing. You can also connect you to additional resources in the community, and we'll educate you to a variety of funding options as well. All right. So with that said, as I spoke through the process in this particular order tonight, ending with the letter 10, this is not necessarily the order in which your plan should proceed, although it may be start writing your letter of intent right away, right? Wake up in the middle of the night. How does this letter of intent look for me? This may take some time and will mostly be worked on throughout the entire planning process. Typically, the financial consideration and the planning is where we will begin, so that when you go to the attorney, you can share how the trust will be funded, which may inform this type of special needs trust you ultimately use. So let me open the session now to any questions you may have. While I address your questions, I'm also passing around, which I don't, but if you guys like any more further information, you guys always should reach out to us, as I think this is important information, right? And if you guys do want so, please put in the chat if you guys would like us to reach out. I can review your existing plans that may have previously set up to determine if they're appropriate relative to your needs or your wishes. Or if you have yet to start your planning process, we can discuss your interest and any additional questions you may have. Once I understand what's better needs that you can also make. And if you guys have any referrals to any support groups, or if you guys need any referrals on yourself or any assistance, we'd be often help you with that as well. With that being said, thank you guys. Do you guys have any additional questions that you guys would like answered? Anybody else have any particular questions at all as well? You can put that in the chat.
This is Felicia.
Hey Felicia, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite. I'm just truly grateful that you even provided this presentation this evening. I have a granddaughter now, and she was just recently diagnosed with autism. So she's 2. So this presentation was right on. So I thank you. I thank you for this information, because I was not aware, and I'm sure my daughter was not aware of a special needs trust. So I will definitely look into that. You provided us with a wealth of information and tools to use and resources. I'm grateful. So I thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. If you have any questions as well, or any resources that you ever need with it, let me know as well. Definitely with your daughter being 2, I'm not sure everything, because the spectrum is so variety. But make sure, I always tell people in my situation, I talk to so many families all the time, make sure that she's getting proper ABA. One thing to your, make sure you guys be an advocate for your child. I think it's so important, right? Especially when we have we don't have enough people working in the healthcare field helping us, and oftentimes you're working with social workers who are underpaid, so they have this huge stack of work files, and you might be just a file. I always say it's important to be an advocate for our child right now, so make sure they have, with her being 2, make sure she has ABA, make sure she has proper speech and occupational therapy as well. Depends on her state, they should tell you as well, so talk to the resource center in her state, as well as her healthcare for that. But that's absolutely what you would need if you talk to any autism support. Do anybody else have any other additional questions as well? Okay, with that being said, if you guys need any help or support, we're here for you guys. We're going to continue to do different topics or go more in depth. We're going to do, in January, we're going to go in depth about law changes in the special needs space. In January, we'll be doing a talk about law changes in the special needs in space. Thank you guys all for getting on this important talk tonight. Once again, look out for an invite in January for about law changes in the special needs space. Once you guys have a good night, a good evening, and God bless you all.
Thank you.